Whenever the RAV4 first came out, it was a small SUV, like really small. But as the generations carried on, they got larger and they got more refined too. But they lost some of that youthful nature that I loved in those older models. So when I saw that Toyota was releasing a smaller SUV that had RAV4-esque looks, this got me excited. Stick around and find out if the new Corolla Cross has an old soul. If you enjoy detailed, fun reviews on cars from every category, new and old, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. That way I can make this my long-term career and you get quality automotive content. Thank you. Now back to the video. Up front, Toyota kept this in the family. Without looking too much like a direct copy, this does have LED headlights as standard, which I should also mention, this keeps it simple with trims. You have the L, LE, and XLE. That's it. The model I tested was the XLE, but this one actually sold the next day before I could finish shooting. And just like when you miss your dentist appointment, I had to wait another 3 months for another one to become available. Yes, the production shortage is still that bad. So this one here is an LE. The XLE gets exclusive LED fog lights and LED daytime running lights along with tail lights, in addition to a more swanky grille and chrome accents around the vehicle. Briefly, I'd like to thank the nice people over at Royal South Toyota in Bloomington, Indiana for letting me review their Corolla Cross. If you're interested in a new or used Toyota, check them out. All of these will still have 8 inches of ground clearance, which is good for someone who camps or is bad at parking. You'll find 18-inch wheels here on our XLE. Standard, you'll have 17-inch steelies with hubcaps and then 17-inch alloys on the LE, which these wheels certainly look more upscale than what you'll find on the LE, but I actually prefer the more utilitarian wheels of the LE. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Another sweet feature, LE buyers will also get roof rails and smart key access, which I don't have the key, so it's just gonna do that. What I'm really excited about here is that Toyota actually made this a little bit more boxy. It kind of follows a very similar silhouette to the current generation RAV4, so that should mean we have extra space in the back, which we'll find out here soon. This is a big departure from the definitely not a flop Toyota CHR. One quick touch that I like with the Corolla Cross, the badge right here. Instead of just keeping it really basic with that floating roof design, they embossed the Corolla Cross logo into that panel. Now, if you want to take the L with your Corolla Cross, you will have black mirror caps, but color-keyed door handles and a spoiler. All models will come with a clearly exposed muffler. Kudos to Toyota for not doing any kind of fake exhaust ports down here. Looks are all subjective, so again, let me know what you guys think. It doesn't look like it's trying to be too sporty. It's not so rugged to where it forgets what it really is, but it's enough to catch my eye. If you want a power liftgate, it's available, but only as an option with the XLE. Overall, the exterior gives me baby RAV4 vibes. But when you hop on the inside, it feels more like a beefy Corolla. The fit and finish of everything is good. It's not going to have the softest materials everywhere. There's not really any soft place to rest your knees. Of course, there's that glossy black plastic that attracts fingerprints and gets scratched easily. But that's not used to an excessive degree. There's a good variation in texture, and I dig the overall aesthetic. They kept that really chintzy hard touch plastic stuff down to a minimum, so this does feel premium, which it should when it carries an over $30,000 MSRP. Now the L and LE are going to just get a 4-inch multi-function display here and your traditional gauges. My model here has a little bit more customizable 7-inch display that I think is pretty well integrated into the system, albeit it doesn't have an abundance of features like what you would find in a Taos with the digital cockpit. The steering wheel has a nice satisfying grip to it, which you'll get a leather wheel in the LE and XLE. I'd recommend really going for the LE because you also get goodies like that smart key system and a wireless charger as well. Now all of them except for the base, which will have a 7-inch screen, will get an 8-inch touchscreen here, and it's adequate for the class. It's really simple to use. It's not gonna have the fastest response time. The resolution here isn't top notch, especially in the backup camera, but it more than gets the job done, and it's far from frustrating to me. Now this does have the optional JBL sound system. And this actually includes a subwoofer. Just like me after I started lifting in high school, the JBL sound system is powerful without many other redeeming qualities. The high end is not all that clear when at higher volumes. Still, it beats the bass setup, and it's nice that they give you this option on LE as well. All others come with 6 speakers. While we're on features, yes, remote start only comes with a subscription from Toyota, which is annoying, but other companies like Subaru do this too, and it also includes more features than just remote start, so there are pros and cons to it. It's about $80 a year for the Corolla Cross. L and LE get 6-way adjustable cloth seats. LE buyers also get automatic climate control, while XLE makes that dual zone. Luckily, I found those base seats to be sufficient with comfort, with good enough support and a nice shape. You do have reasonably soft elbow rests. Now, since this is the XLE, you're gonna have heated Softex faux leather seats. My driver's seat here is a 10-way adjustable one, and being 6'3", I can find a comfortable position, one that I definitely think is superior to the Subaru Crosstrek. The seats here don't hug you as tight as what a CX-30 would, so if you're larger or don't want to be squeezed, the Corolla Cross should be a good companion for you. And I really need to praise Toyota here for the use of physical dials. These don't have a click to them, but they do have a nice positive movement, if that makes any sense. And you do still have physical buttons here. However, I'm still just not a huge fan of this stuck-on touchscreen look. Now, sitting behind myself in the back seat is rather tight. Now, I have headroom, and just like that old CR-V I drove, the floor is low enough to where I actually have a decent amount of thigh support here, despite the seat not having too much angle. There's definitely space for me to put my feet underneath the front seat, but legroom is almost as limited as my patience for people that use hazard lights as an excuse to park anywhere. It feels a little claustrophobic back here. The Subaru Crosstrek, Honda HR-V, and even the Mazda CX-30 are more accommodating. A 6-footer can ride back here, but a rear-facing child seat might prove to be a hassle. One nice touch that the Corolla Cross does have for small families is rear vents. They're standard in all trims, as they should be. Oh wait, fucking. After that epic struggle, I ran out of daylight, but the cargo area of the Corolla Cross is practical. However, a high load floor means that it doesn't have a vast space back here. There are no levers that shoot down the rear seats, there's no middle seat pass-through, but it's a bit bigger than the Crosstrek, Mazda CX-30, and Honda HR-V. And it even increases in size if you stick with front-wheel drive due to a solid beam rear suspension that we'll get into later. It trails the relatively massive VW Taos and is far behind something like a RAV4 CR-V. Now that I've thoroughly introduced you to the Corolla Cross, let's really find out what it's all about on the road. Despite this being considerably smaller, the Corolla Cross handles in a similar manner as the RAV4, for better and worse. Under the hood, you have a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine. It's the same one that you'll find under the hood of the upper trim Corollas. It makes the same 169 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque too. Toyota even threw in their CVT transmission with the traditional first gear. For the sake of science, let's see what this thing will do to 60. Traction control off, AC off. Now, no wheel spin whatsoever. I didn't even feel the front wheels slip. 0 to 60 comes up around the bottom of the class at 9.7 seconds, roughly what an automatic 2-liter Crosstrek would manage. At least this does have direct and port fuel injection to keep the intake valves clean for hundreds of thousands of miles. The CVT shifting out of first is usually seamless, but it does feel out of place at times. With the physical first gear, it's almost like you trade the rubber band and lurching effect from a traditional CVT for less torque and sluggish acceleration from a roll. Anyway, 0 to 60 didn't impress me, but what did was the all-wheel drive. This is good at making sure there's power to the rear wheels at low speed. In the snow, this did its job well. It doesn't appear to send as much torque to the rear wheels as a Crosstrek, but I couldn't take this off-road to really find out for myself. For just $1,300, I'd recommend that you get the all-wheel drive, but not just for the traction. Now, the interesting thing here about the suspension setup is that this actually has an independent rear suspension because this is the all-wheel drive model. If you get a front drive, you're still gonna have torsion beam rear. And so I can't speak too much about that. This is similar to what the Volkswagen Taos does, and I found the torsion beam in that to handle adequately around corners with really rough roads. You could kind of notice a little bit more unstableness, but for the most part, these manufacturers, Mazda did the same thing. They've done a good job at working with these torsion beam suspensions to both just get costs down while still providing an adequate ride that most consumers are not going to notice the difference. On these rough, uneven roads, I found the Corolla Cross to not only handle with comfort, but handle with poise. This feels well controlled and confident, and it's also not overtly soft. Still, I think it's more noisy than the RAV4, Subaru Forester, and, well, most of the other larger SUVs. Well, let's climb this really steep hill here with the CVT. It's really not trying to get into the upper RPMs where this engine is going to make more power, and it definitely does drone. Right there, it starts to feel like an older powertrain, but if you plant the accelerator, it does respond well enough. So I can't complain too much here at this price point, especially when you consider what most of the other cars have. The brakes here are also not spongy, not very aggressive, definitely has a softer feeling than some of the more sporty options in the segment. Now, you do at least have a competent suspension here, at least in the all-wheel drive models. It's very comfortable. They did a really good job with this chassis because I know the new Corollas also handle pretty well. Where this really detracts from the sporty experiences, the steering, it's just pretty forgettable. It's about exactly what you would expect from a car in this segment. It's super numb and it's not very quick. There's no drama in driving the Corolla Cross. Above everything else, the steering is light and the Corolla Cross is extremely easy to maneuver, which is probably a higher priority for most buyers in the class. But I think the Crosstrek handles better dynamically and the CX-30 has better steering with actual life in it. While this is something I can accept, I was hoping this would be more playful to remind me more of some of the older compact crossovers. Now at highway speed in the Corolla Cross, there's noticeable wind noise. It's not going to be as quiet as I think the Mazda CX-30 was. Feels like it's just about on par with the Crosstrek. It's nothing that's too offensive. Now when it comes to safety features, you're going to have Toyota Safety Sense here standard. If you get the LE trim, you'll get things like the blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. XLE buyers get steering responsive headlights and parking sensors up front, along with reverse automatic braking. This doesn't make the Corolla Cross stand out, but what does is the predicted reliability. Consumer Reports doesn't show any notable problems with the new generation Corolla. However, some digging on the internet will reveal some complaints with the CVT, with some reporting major faults. Toyota did issue a recall on some 19 hatch models for stalling. Some have also complained about the cruise control acting erratic downhill. Still, these problems don't seem too widespread, and I would assume this to be as dependable as the Mazda. Now, I started off this video with some nostalgic thoughts in mind. I was kind of hoping that this would feel more like the old crossovers, the old RAV4, or that second generation Honda CR-V that I drove last year. But this isn't that. And I'm sure that's a great thing for Toyota because this allows them to make a car cheaper than the RAV4 to reach more audiences and still give them a quality product that feels substantial. And to that regard, they definitely succeeded. Like the older SUVs, whenever you drove them around, yeah, the steering wasn't super communicative, but it also didn't feel as artificial. You have way more visibility too. It was just a more pure experience, even though they still weren't exactly enthusiast cars. This feels modern. And that's not to say that visibility out of this thing is horrendous or this feels very secluded from the road, because its ride quality and noise are still far from luxurious. Overall, the Cross does a lot of things right. It's competitively priced, especially if you don't jump on the optional JBL or convenience packages. It's also comfortable. The interior and ride feel high quality. It gets excellent city gas mileage and has a big caboose. I might knock it for its sleepy backroad characteristics, but in reality, the tight rear seat will likely weed out more buyers than the pokey performance and lack of zest on the road. Maybe someday we'll get another charismatic, uber practical SUV with a tidy footprint. This just isn't that. But if you're looking for a reliable crossover that offers most of the refinement and comfort of larger SUVs without the added mass, the Corolla Cross is a great choice. If you enjoyed the video, it would mean a lot if you liked, subscribed, and hit the bell. It all helps me with my success in the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.